The waterline of the Euphrates has not looked this way in living memory. Along the stretch where the river bends past the ruins of ancient Dura-Europos in eastern Syria, satellite imagery captured by the European Space Agency's Sentinel-2 mission over the last 18 months shows the western bank receding by nearly 40 meters. The riverbed, once a dense brown corridor of silt and slow current, now exposes flat sheets of cracked clay, pale calcium deposits, and the rounded skulls of river stones that have not seen sunlight in centuries. Local fishermen working out of the village of Hajin described walking across sections that used to require boats. And in early spring, as the receding water peeled back another layer of sediment near the limestone escarpment that runs beneath the old Roman garrison, something began to show through the mud. A dark, perfectly rectangular opening. Not a natural fissure, not a collapsed bank. A doorway, carved by human hands, sealed behind a wall of compacted river silt that radiocarbon sampling later dated to between 1,800 and 2,100 years before the present. The Euphrates is not an ordinary river. Genesis chapter 2 names it as one of the 4 rivers flowing out of Eden, the eastern boundary of the world the Hebrew scribes understood. The prophet Jeremiah was instructed to bury a linen sash along its banks as a sign of coming judgment. And in the book of Revelation, chapter 16, verse 12, the Apostle John records a vision in which the 6th angel pours out his bowl upon the great river Euphrates, and its water is dried up, so that the way of the kings from the east might be prepared. For 2,000 years, that passage has been read as metaphor, as poetry, as future allegory. But the river is measurably drying. Turkish dam projects upstream, prolonged drought across the Anatolian plateau, and reduced snowmelt from the eastern Taurus mountains have combined to reduce the Euphrates flow by an estimated 40% compared to its 20th century baseline. The water is going, and something underneath it is being uncovered. If what you are about to hear strikes a deeper chord within your conviction, if the weight of these uncovered things presses against something old and watchful inside you, leave your perspective in the comments below and stand with those who are tracking these shifts in real time. Because the people who notice early are the ones who are not caught unprepared. The ones who dismiss it are the ones who later will wish they had listened when the signs were quiet. What is being pulled from beneath the Euphrates is not a curiosity. It is, by every measurable standard, a structure that was not meant to be found by accident and not meant to be opened at all. The initial survey was conducted in late autumn by a small joint team operating under a regional heritage permit, using a tracked GSSI utility scan ground-penetrating radar unit pushed across the newly exposed clay shelf. The radargrams returned an image no one on the team was expecting. Beneath the doorway, at a depth of roughly 18 meters, the radar pulse outlined a void. Not a small storage cell, not a tomb chamber of the sort common to Roman-era Syria. A void measuring approximately 92 meters along its longest axis, with a vaulted ceiling that arched to nearly 14 meters at its apex. A chamber the size of a cathedral, hollowed out of the limestone bedrock directly underneath the riverbed itself, and running through it, on the thermal overlay produced by a separate FLIR T-series infrared scan, were thin filaments of cold air, signatures of internal corridors leading deeper still, downward into the substrate beneath the chamber floor. It was at this point, on the second evening of the survey, that the team's satellite uplink failed. Not gradually. The 2 Iridium handsets, the field laptop, and the radar unit's recording display all dropped to black within a span of perhaps 11 seconds. The ambient temperature on the surface had not changed. There was no electromagnetic storm registered on regional weather services. The team's lead surveyor, a Lebanese geophysicist with 23 years of field experience, later described the failure in his incident log as a clean cut, as though something underneath us absorbed the signal. When the equipment was carried back to camp roughly 400 meters from a bank, every device powered on again without fault. Whatever was beneath the river, it did not want to be seen, and the wall between what we accept as ordinary and what waits underneath had, by that night, already been crossed. The descent into the chamber was conducted 3 weeks later, after the doorway had been carefully cleared by hand. The passage beyond the entrance is not vertical. It slopes downward at a measured angle of 17 degrees, and the walls are not roughly cut. They are dressed limestone, joined without mortar, each block measuring approximately 1.5 meters by 2 meters, fitted so tightly that a knife blade cannot be inserted between them. The masonry is older than Roman, older by stylistic comparison than the Neo-Babylonian fortifications at Babylon itself. The team's consulting archaeologist, drawing on stratigraphic correlations with the lower foundations of Uruk and Eridu, placed the construction tentatively in the late 3rd or early 2nd millennium before the current era, which would mean it predates the lifetime of Abraham, and was already ancient when the city of Ur rose along the same river system to the south. Inside the corridor, the air is wrong. The recorded temperature held at a steady 9 degrees Celsius, which is consistent with subterranean Syrian limestone, but the humidity reading from a handheld hygrometer registered 96% saturation, despite the chamber being sealed behind compacted clay for what the radiocarbon evidence suggests was at least 2 millennia. The walls are cold to the touch in a way the team's lead caver described as drinking heat out of your palm. And running along the upper edge of the passage at roughly head height are long horizontal smears of black soot, not the gray ash of cooking fires. Black, oily soot of the kind produced by sustained high-temperature combustion of animal fat or pitch. The soot is patterned. It forms repeated arcs, spaced approximately every 2 meters, suggesting that torches or sacrificial vessels were placed along the corridor at regular intervals, burning continuously, perhaps for the duration of whatever ceremony brought people down into this place. The corridor opens, after 64 meters, into the main chamber, and it is here that the first artifact was found. Arranged along the perimeter of the vault, set into shallow niches carved at precise 3-meter intervals, are 9 mummified human figures. They are not buried. They are not laid out in funerary repose. Each figure is seated upright, wrists bound behind the back with braided flax, cord that has survived because of the chamber's stable atmosphere, and each skull is tilted upward, the jaw locked open in what forensic examination by a consulting Jordanian pathologist described as a paramotum fixation of the facial musculature consistent with extreme terminal distress. The expressions in plain language are of terror, and the alignment is not accidental. All 9 faces are turned to look at the same point, the center of the chamber floor. What occupies that center is a circular pit, approximately 6 meters in diameter, sunk into the limestone to a depth that the team's drop line measured at 22 meters before the weight came to rest on something solid. The lip of the pit is carved with cuneiform script in a dialect that the team's epigrapher identified as a late variant of Akkadian, mixed with older Sumerian logograms. The translation, still preliminary, includes the phrase commonly rendered as the Watchers, bound beneath the waters, until the day of judgment. This is not an arbitrary literary construction. The Book of Enoch, chapter 10, verses 4 through 6, describes the angel Raphael being commanded to bind the Watcher Azazel hand and foot, and to cast him into the darkness beneath the rough and jagged rocks of the desert, where he shall remain until the great day of judgment. The Book of Jude, in the New Testament, verse 6, restates the same tradition. The angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day. The chamber matches the description, not loosely, precisely. The 9 mummified figures are not the Watchers. They are, based on the iconography woven into the remnants of their garments, priests. Specifically, Kalu priests of the old Mesopotamian temple tradition, whose function was to maintain the songs and incantations that kept certain things sealed away. Each one wears around the neck a thin band of beaten copper inscribed with the same repeated phrase, which the epigrapher rendered as "May the mouth remain shut, may the seal remain unbroken." The fact that they were bound, facing inward toward the pit, suggests they were not casualties. They were stationed. They were placed there alive, restrained, with their faces fixed upon the seal, as a final ritual layer of containment. Whatever was in the pit, the people who built this chamber believed that 9 human watchers, bound and facing it in death, would add to whatever else they had used to keep it down there. The cuneiform border around the pit continues for another 17 lines. The portion translated so far includes a warning that anyone who breaks the seal will release what the text calls the seed of the fallen ones, the offspring of a union the Mesopotamian tradition calls forbidden, and which the 6th chapter of Genesis records in nearly identical language. The sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. The same were the mighty men which were of old, men of renown. The Hebrew word translated as mighty men is Nephilim, and the Mesopotamian word inscribed on the pit's lip, transliterated as Anzuzir, carries an almost identical meaning. The chamber beneath the Euphrates was not built to honor these beings. The chamber was built to hold them down. This is the point at which the assumptions about the site collapsed. For the first 11 days of the excavation, the working hypothesis among the team had been that the chamber represented a temple of unusual size and ritual function, perhaps connected to a forgotten cult of the Mesopotamian deity Tiamat, whose myths involved primordial waters and bound monstrous beings. That theory dissolved when the secondary corridors, the cold filaments that the FLIR scan had detected branching off from the main vault, were physically entered. Because what those corridors lead to are not shrines. They are not altars. They are cells. Small rectangular rooms, each carved with the same proportions, each sealed at the entrance with a massive limestone slab inscribed with what the epigrapher described as binding script, each containing, on internal radar scan, a single oblong mass of organic density consistent with a large biological remain. The slabs have not been opened. The team's protocol, approved by the Regional Antiquities Authority, prohibits disturbance of sealed funerary or ritual containers without on-site forensic support that the current security situation in eastern Syria cannot guarantee. But one of the slabs, located in the deepest of the side corridors, was found already breached, not by archaeologists. The break in the slab is ancient. The fracture pattern, analyzed by a structural geologist on the team, shows that the limestone gave way under outward pressure, not inward. Something pushed the slab from inside the cell. The fragments lie on the corridor floor, dusted with the same powdery calcium that coats every surface down there. And the cell, beyond the broken slab, is empty. The braided flax restraints that once held something inside hang loose from heavy iron anchor points driven into the limestone wall. The anchor points are not corroded in the manner of ordinary iron. They show the bluish discoloration of iron that has been subjected to sudden, intense thermal shock. When the seal on a second cell, intact but cracked along one edge, was approached with a fiber optic borescope inserted through the existing fissure, the team recorded 2 readings they have not been able to explain. The first was an olfactory signature, picked up by the borescope's integrated gas sampling sensor, that registered as a combination of methane, ammonia, and a complex organic compound the sensor flagged as consistent with decomposing animal tissue at an early stage. The chamber had been sealed for, at minimum, 2,000 years. The decomposition signature should have been ancient, dry, mineralized. Instead, the readings indicated active, wet biological breakdown, as if something inside the cell had died within the last several weeks. The second reading was thermal. The interior of the cell registered 4 degrees colder than the surrounding limestone, a localized cold spot that the team's thermal physicist, after reviewing the data, could only describe as endothermic, meaning that something inside the cell appeared to be drawing heat out of its environment rather than passively matching it. The borescope's optical feed, lowered into the cell to a depth of approximately 2 meters, captured roughly 9 seconds of usable footage before the lens fogged over from the humidity differential. In those 9 seconds, the camera passed across the cell's far wall and pressed into the limestone. At a height of approximately 2.5 meters above the floor are 2 handprints. They are not painted. They are not carved. They are impressed, as though the stone had been soft when the hand made contact. Each handprint measures roughly 38 centimeters from wrist to fingertip, with 6 visible digits on each hand rather than the standard 5. The Hebrew text of 2 Samuel, chapter 21, verse 20, describes a man of great stature at Gath who had on every hand 6 fingers, and on every foot 6 toes, 4 and 20 in number, and he also was born to the giant. The giant referenced is the same lineage the text traces back to the survivors of an Nephilim line after the flood. The handprints on the wall match the description. The limestone around the handprints, when sampled by a small core drill inserted through the borescope channel, showed crystalline restructuring consistent with brief exposure to temperatures exceeding 900 degrees Celsius. Limestone does not normally deform at that temperature. It calcines and crumbles. But the wall in this cell is intact, smooth, and faintly glassy in the immediate area of the handprints. Whatever pressed its hands against the wall did so with enough localized heat to partially vitrify the stone, and then withdrew, leaving the surrounding cell otherwise untouched. The thermal physicist's preliminary note in the field log reads, in full, the energy required to produce this effect, applied through human-shaped surface contact, has no known biological or geological mechanism. Recommend the cell remain sealed pending further evaluation. The cell has remained sealed, but the question of what made the impressions and whether it is still inside has not been answered. The deepest level of the complex was not entered by human personnel. The corridor leading down to it narrows progressively, dropping from a comfortable 2.5 meters of clearance at the main vault level to a constricted opening barely 60 centimeters wide at its lowest accessible point, roughly 41 meters below the original chamber floor. The team deployed a tethered Ilias 3 collision-tolerant drone equipped with onboard LiDAR mapping and dual thermal and visible light cameras to survey what lay beyond. The drone descended for 9 minutes and 22 seconds before the tether reached its operational limit. The footage it returned before transmission was lost has been reviewed frame by frame, and it is the reason the excavation has been quietly suspended. The lowest chamber is enormous. The LiDAR mesh, reconstructed after retrieval, indicates a roughly oval space measuring 140 meters along its longest dimension, with a ceiling that vaults to nearly 26 meters at its highest point. The floor is not level. It descends in concentric tiered rings toward a central depression, and from the ceiling above that depression hang chains. The chains are not symbolic. They are industrial in scale. Each link measures, by the drone's laser rangefinder, approximately 40 centimeters in length, and is forged from a dark iron alloy that the metallurgist on the team identified from spectroscopic analysis of fragments later recovered from the chamber floor as containing trace elements consistent with meteoritic nickel. The chains terminate in heavy collars and wrist and ankle cuffs, each sized for a being that the structural engineer estimated, from the spacing and load-bearing calculations, would have stood between 4.5 and 5 meters in height. 5 sets of restraints, 4 of them still anchored and intact, hanging empty in the still air. One of them, the central set, torn from its ceiling mount. The broken iron splayed outward in a pattern of failure that the metallurgist described as consistent with sudden, immense tensile force applied from below, not above. The drone's thermal camera registered something else in the moments before signal loss. As the unit hovered near the broken restraint, the thermal feed picked up a localized cold mass moving along the lower tier of the chamber. The mass had no visible light signature. The cameras saw nothing, but the thermal sensor registered an outline, roughly humanoid in proportion, but significantly larger than any human, moving silently across the floor at a measured pace of approximately 1.5 meters per second. The cold signature was approximately 6 degrees below the ambient chamber temperature, an inversion that should not occur in a biological body, and it tracked across the camera's field of view for 11 seconds before the drone's signal collapsed into raw electromagnetic static. The tether was retrieved by hand. The drone itself was never recovered. The line came back severed at a point that, when the team measured the recovered length, corresponded almost exactly to the location of the broken restraint. In the 72 hours following the drone's disappearance, 3 things happened above ground that the team has documented in their incident reports and submitted to the regional governorate. First, a sinkhole opened approximately 11 kilometers north of the excavation site, swallowing roughly 30 meters of an agricultural access road. The hole was measured at 14 meters across and at least 30 meters deep before debris obscured the lower portion. Second, low-frequency vibrations, registered between 4 and 7 Hz on a portable seismometer left running at the camp, persisted intermittently for the entire 72-hour period, with no corresponding tectonic event recorded by regional monitoring stations. Third, the small village of Hajin reported a sudden die-off of livestock, specifically goats and sheep, within a 2-kilometer radius of the riverbank. Veterinary inspection found no infectious cause. The animals had simply stopped in the night where they stood. The team's lead archaeologist, in a private communication that was subsequently leaked to a regional press outlet, described the situation in these terms: "We did not open this. We found it already opened. Whatever was in the central restraint left through the corridors before we ever set foot in the chamber. The question is no longer whether the seal has been broken. The question is how long it has been broken and where the contents have gone." That communication has since been retracted, and the official statement from the Heritage Authority describes the suspension of the excavation as a precaution related to site instability and regional security concerns. But the seismic readings, the sinkhole, and the livestock losses have not been retracted. They are matters of public record, and they are not the only such events that have occurred along the Euphrates in recent months. The convergence is what should give a thinking person pause. The biblical text in Revelation describes the drying of the Euphrates as a preparatory act, clearing the way for what the text calls the kings from the east. The river is demonstrably drying. The text in Jude describes beings reserved in chains under darkness until the day of judgment. A chamber matching that description has been found, with the chains broken and the restraints empty. The text in Genesis describes a lineage of mighty men of great stature, with anomalous physical features, including 6 digits per hand. Handprints matching that description have been impressed, with thermal force that has no natural explanation, into the wall of a sealed cell. None of these data points, taken alone, would constitute proof of anything. Taken together, along the same river system, within the same calendar year, they constitute a pattern. And patterns, in matters of prophecy, as in matters of forensic investigation, are how the truth gets noticed before it announces itself. The wider context cannot be set aside. The drying of the Euphrates is occurring against a backdrop of regional realignment that historians will, in retrospect, recognize as one of the most consequential in modern memory. The traditional powers along the rivers, Syria, Iraq, Turkey, are caught in overlapping economic, military, and ideological pressures that the international system has not seen converge in this geography since the collapse of the Ottoman administration over a century ago. Trade routes that were dormant for generations are being reopened. Pipelines, rail corridors, and military supply lines that crossed the ancient territory of Mesopotamia are being rebuilt, contested, and in some cases, weaponized. The kings of the East, whatever the original author of Revelation understood that phrase to mean, are not absent from the modern landscape. They are mobilizing. The road is being prepared. At the same time, the climatic and seismic signals are accelerating. The Anatolian fault system, which underlies the headwaters of the Euphrates, has produced more measurable activity in the last 3 years than in the previous 3 decades combined. Groundwater tables across the northern Arabian plate are dropping at rates that hydrologists have publicly described as without modern precedent. The sinkholes are not isolated to the area near Hajin. Similar collapses have been documented along the river's course in Iraq, in some cases revealing voids of unknown depth that local authorities have declined to investigate. The earth, in the most literal sense, is opening, and the things that the earth has held under its weight, the things that ancient peoples took such enormous care to seal away with stone and chain and the bound bodies of their own priests, are no longer guaranteed to stay where they were put. This is not casual content. The chamber under the Euphrates is not a curiosity for a weekend documentary. It is, at minimum, a physical and textual convergence that demands serious attention. The people who built that chamber, who carved cuneiform warnings into the lip of a containment pit, who stationed 9 of their own priests as eternal watchers facing the seal, did not do so because they were superstitious. They did so because they were afraid of something specific, And the language they use to describe that fear matches, with uncomfortable precision, the language used by the prophets of Israel, by the author of the book of Enoch, by the Apostle Jude, and by the figure of Jesus himself, who warned in the 24th chapter of Matthew that the days preceding his return would be as the days of Noah were, the days in which the Nephilim walked the earth, and the wickedness of man became great upon the ground. The signs Jesus described in that chapter are not abstract. He named wars and rumors of wars, nation rising against nation, famines and earthquakes in diverse places, and an increase in iniquity that would cause the love of many to grow cold. He instructed his followers to watch, not to speculate, not to entertain themselves with apocalyptic spectacle, to watch. The Greek word he used carries the meaning of staying awake at a post, the way a guard stays awake on a wall, the way the 9 Kalu priests were stationed facing the pit. The act of watching is itself a discipline, and it is a discipline that the modern world, distracted and saturated and weary, has largely forgotten how to practice. What is happening beneath the Euphrates may be, in the end, the most consequential discovery of the current generation, or it may be revealed by further investigation to have a more limited explanation. That determination is not yet possible. What is possible, and what is necessary, is to take seriously the fact that the texts which warned of this convergence are ancient, that the physical site which appears to confirm those texts is real, and that the wider conditions surrounding it, the drying river, the opening earth, the realigning nations, are not coincidence. They are coincidence only to those who have already decided not to look. To everyone else, they are a pattern, and a pattern that is still in motion. So the question that remains is not whether something was once buried beneath the Euphrates. Something was. The question is what it means that the river is being drawn back, that the seals are being found broken, and that the world above the chamber is moving in its politics, and its weather, and its quiet anxieties toward the very convergence the ancient texts said would precede the unveiling of all hidden things. The chamber is open. The chain is broken. The river is going. And the only meaningful question left for anyone who hears this is whether they will be among those who were watching when the hidden things at last were brought permanently into the light, or whether they will be among those who were asleep at the wall, and who woke only when the light had already arrived, and found that they were not ready for what it revealed.